So I should probably start with an apology for not posting anything yesterday. I did put out a members video, so if you are a member, go and check that out. But in terms of any structured videos, honestly, this last week has just felt like an emotional roller coaster following Phoebe's case, with Wood being detained, released, then both of them being arrested, and then Phoebe being found. I did find myself yesterday just needing a day off. I can't believe that I got so affected by a young girl at the other end of the country. I mean, from here to Gingin is probably about 1,800 kilometres. It would take a 20-hour drive to get there. And yet, something about this young girl just really touched me, and I found myself really emotionally drained yesterday. So I took a day off to regroup. Just did a kind of a debrief video for my members, just sharing my thoughts on this case and a few other cases, just in, I guess, a slightly more relaxed manner. So there's a few things to share with regards to Phoebe's case. Detectives have shared some information about the investigation. There's a few clips that I'm going to share because they give us insights into the location where Phoebe was found. And then there's a few other bits of information that I want to share at the end of this video. So just a really quick recap on Phoebe's case. I won't go into a lot of detail. If you want to catch up on her case from the beginning, there is a playlist on my channel from about a week after Phoebe went missing, I think. I'm not sure. Feels like forever. I know I came into it kind of late because it didn't hit media down here till she'd been missing for a while. But there is a playlist on my channel page if you wanted to go and watch other videos in relation to Phoebe. So Phoebe was due to fly from Bundaberg to Brisbane and then on to Perth, Western Australia on the 15th of May. She was headed over to visit her boyfriend, and by all accounts it sounds like she really wasn't intending on heading back. She was reported missing by her boyfriend after she never arrived on her flight, and her housemates that she had been living with claimed that they had dropped her off along the road somewhere approaching the airport along with her luggage. There is of course no evidence of that having occurred, and it sounds like, based on what detectives have said, that definitely did not occur. On Thursday, Queensland police finally arrested Phoebe's housemates, Tanika Bromley and James Wood, and they are currently charged with one each with a charge of homicide, and then they each have two charges of interfering with remains, and that's not the correct wording. YouTube is super twitchy when it comes to using specific terms, so I'm trying to word things in a way that isn't going to get me demonetized or get my video removed in any way. So they were arrested on Thursday evening, and then on Friday afternoon at around 2:30, Phoebe's remains were located. They were located 9 kilometres from where police had originally been searching. And where police had originally been searching, it sounds like that is where she was originally left. So I've got 3 news articles to go through. I have edited out parts of them because some of it is just repetition, some of it is information that we already know. So let's have a listen to them.
On winding dirt roads deep inside the Goodnight Scrub National Park, this is the track James Wood and Tanika Bromley allegedly used to leave 17-year-old Pheobe Bishop in dense bushland.
An area was identified and a crime scene has been declared. As a result of that crime scene, police have located at that time what was believed to be human remains.
The remains are believed to be Phoebe's, allegedly murdered by her housemates, but formal forensic testing is still underway.
We always wanted to bring Phoebe home, and we believe that this is the first step in that process.
Police were sifting through a section of the same national park 2 weeks ago, but that effort was called off. New evidence yesterday leading detectives 9 kilometres from the original search site. It's understood a family tracking app on Phoebe's phone helped guide detectives to this area. Phoebe's mum could access her location, and that led to a breakthrough.
The area, once again, is in an unforgiving terrain, so it may take some time to finish that examination.
So it sounds like Phoebe's mother had Life 360 or a similar app so that she could track Phoebe's phone. I know in terms of iPhones, you can use the Track My Phone app, and that's incredibly accurate, provided, of course, that you are in range. And I know there's other apps that are available as well, but I have to say that while a lot of young people were probably resentful of the idea of their parents having tracking on their mobile phones, honestly, it's worth doing it.
As tributes for the carefree teenager grow even interstate. In Sydney, her best friend Michaela has started a public memorial to remember a beautiful girl who had her whole life ahead of her.
I've never met anyone in my entire life who had such a kind heart that she had. She was so beautiful, and every room she walked into, it just lit up, and she was just so happy.
My heart really goes out for Phoebe's friends, to be that age and to lose a friend, no matter how it happens, is, it's something that they're not equipped for at that age. I mean, don't get me wrong, any kind of sudden loss like this is devastating on people, but for teenagers, it's just not something that they ever imagine happening in their world, and it's something that will carry with them through the rest of their lives.
And across the country, hundreds have shown their support, lighting a candle last night in Phoebe's honour.
I think the community is absolutely reeling. We've had a few horrific weeks here in our Bundaberg region, and this is very unlike anything that we've had to experience before.
And on the road where Phoebe is believed to have been last seen near Bundaberg Airport, tributes are growing by the hour. Bouquets of flowers are being left next to photos of Phoebe and letters that read Forever 17. The teenager, there will be time for the community to come together, Paul, at a community candlelight vigil in Gin tomorrow afternoon, starting from 4 p.m. People are being asked to wear bright colours and butterflies.
So just for clarification, yes, that was a news article from yesterday, and the community vigil is actually being held this afternoon. So this is the flyer that has been put online and presumably shared in the Gin area, just asking people to please wear colours and butterflies and bring a candle if you wish. So the next news article is from Channel 7, and this also gives a little bit more information.
Among 6,700 hectares of remote and rugged bushland, a dreadful discovery against the odds. In the Goodnight Scrub National Park, police find human remains believed to be those of Pheobe Bishop.
We've got so many huge national parks here in Australia, and this is one of them. And of course, being in the northern part of Australia, it is far more dense than what we've got down here in Victoria. And I mean, even as many of you know, down here in Victoria, we've been praying for them to find Samantha Murphy for, 16 months now. And they've gone through various areas of National Park around Ballarat down here trying to find her with no luck. So it is just, remarkable that they did manage to find Phoebe.
Data that led police here and a cadaver dog which made the find. The body wasn't buried, instead dumped among thick scrub near a trail deep in the mountain range. Police won't say what injuries Phoebe suffered and don't yet know how she was killed.
It's a difficult, complex scene.
I find it a little bit alarming hearing him describe it as a difficult, complex scene. However, what we need to recognise is that they moved her twice, and also she's been out there for 3 weeks. So, and I'll just give you a quick trigger warning, you may want to skip ahead a little bit. If you don't want to hear any of these details, what I will do is I will insert a timestamp for you roughly here so that you know where to skip ahead to. So what we're looking at here, the reason why he's referring to it as a complex scene could just simply be the fact that she's been out in the elements for 3 weeks. So we are talking about what would be a somewhat advanced stage of decomposition. But not only that, there would have been, at the very least, insect activity and possibly also activity from birds and wildlife. If you take a quick look at this chart, this is of course in Celsius, not Fahrenheit, but you can see from the 15th right up until the end of the month, basically you had temperatures, you had an average temperature of 26, 27 degrees. You had on the 28th, 29 degrees, and even the overnight minimums weren't all that low, so I think 14 is probably the lowest I can see. So for anyone who is wondering what that equates to in Fahrenheit, you're looking at a daily average of around 80 degrees. You have that 29 degrees day, that would be about 84 degrees, and minimums at the lowest 57 degrees. So that's going to have a huge impact on the rate of decomposition. And look, I hate saying it, but Wood seems like a true psychopath. So it is possible that the body was not intact. And I'm not going to go further into that because it's not something that I think I want to discuss. But, we've heard plenty of cases of that sort of thing.
The landlord's also returning for the first time to see and smell for themselves the squalor and stench left behind by Bromley and Wood.
We started our family here and put work into the house, and it's sad to see it like it is.
He had no idea about the state of the property until the house hit the headlines.
What you see outside is what you see inside. An accumulation of junk and rubbish, no maintenance, no care.
Revealing the rental was in Bromley's name and she had never missed a payment until the house became a crime scene. Now he's determined to clean it up and get it back on the market.
It's got to all get cleaned up. It's got to be made livable again. The house isn't the reason this has all happened.
Those poor people. Imagine seeing your rental property on the news in that condition, and in relation to a case like this, you would be utterly, utterly shocked. And, you know, so what if you've got the bond money? That's not going to cover all this. These people are going to be out of pocket big time just for cleaning up the property and preparing it to release or to sell. I mean, in this day and age, it's not like you can exactly just bulldoze it. They don't look like the sort of people that could afford to do that, so they've got a massive job ahead of them. They really have. I just hope they don't get too many rubberneckers turning up while they're trying to clean up the property and prepare it for sale or lease.
Police say it's likely to still be a few days yet before they can formally confirm the remains as Phoebe's. There's still forensic testing to be done and examinations to be carried out at the site of the discovery.
So they're going to have to rely on DNA matching to be able to formally identify her. So in investigations like this, legally, identification has to be done through DNA match, dental records, or fingerprinting. I think we can be certain that fingerprinting is not going to happen, which leaves DNA and dental records. DNA is obviously going to be the most accurate, and I do believe I heard something on one of the news stories about them waiting for DNA to come back. The next piece I'm going to play is from Sunrise, which is it's an Australian morning program. I'm just going to say that they are notorious for copyright claims, so in order to make sure that I am sticking to fair use, I will be stopping and interrupting a few times.
Police believe the remains were moved a number of times by Phoebe's accused killers and housemates, James Wood and Tanika Bromley. And for more, we are joined by former Queensland Police Detective Terry Goldsworthy on the Gold Coast. Good morning to you, Terry. Thanks for joining us. Look, this is obviously a heartbreaking discovery for the family and those police officers involved in this. But what do we know so far about where the body was actually found?
I just want to acknowledge the sort of people they have to be to have moved her remains twice. Most people wouldn't even be able to look at the remains of someone who has died. And yet they took her and they hid her. And then they went back and they moved her again. We know they moved her at least twice. I really hope that, for once, the Australian justice system isn't too lenient and that these people are put away for a very, very long time.
Yeah, good morning. Look, this is a positive step forward for the investigation. I mean, ultimately, they were looking at a murder charge with no body being located, so this is going to be beneficial to the investigation. What we do know is that the police apparently had previously searched this area, so they've gone back to it and they're looking at it now. They're using the dog squad. I imagine they're talking about cadaver dogs there. In terms of aerial assets, they're also using them, so I suspect that could be drones, etc., things like that. So
I would have thought that the area there would have been too dense for using drones, but I guess in order to cover a larger area, they're going to do that. Certainly it's not going to be anywhere near as effective as ground searches, but they must feel that there is some worth to using them, if they are actually using them for the investigation.
they'll now be going over that area in what we call a grid search, depending on the size of it, and just going through each part of that grid to see what evidence they can obtain, because where the body is usually the biggest source of evidence in these type of investigations.
It's not unheard of to have wins in terms of no body cases, but it's certainly helps things out a heck of a lot once you have recovered the remains. Because like you said, that's where most of your forensics come from. And I have no doubt that there will be a lot of DNA evidence, because even with her remains being out there for 3 weeks, let's be real, first of all, neither of those two seem to be overly bright. But I think we can be pretty certain that Wood was so arrogant and so sure of himself that he believed he wouldn't end up getting hauled in for this. I think the pair of them thought that they had outsmarted the police, and I reckon it was a bit of a rude surprise for them when they were finally arrested.
OK, police revealed that there was a vehicle that she was transported in before she vanished, but have decided not to disclose that information. What do we know about the hours before she went missing?
Well, we know that about 3 weeks ago she booked a flight to Perth. She was in contact with some associates, and then that's basically where the trail ends. So this was, a complex and difficult investigation for the police, in that it was initially a missing person investigation. And in this case, they've moved very quickly to transition from a missing person investigation to a homicide investigation, a suspicious death. So, I mean, they haven't lost much evidence, I don't think. They've also had the ability to try and move from that low information state that you do when you've got a missing person report, you don't know much, to looking at who perhaps may be the prime suspects if there's any foul play. So, in this case, I think the police would have moved in very quickly in terms of who they were focusing on.
That's got to be the understatement of the year. I would imagine from the moment that they spoke to James Wood, they realised precisely what they were looking at. It's just that we know that police in Australia will keep these things very, very close to the chest, especially when you've got an arrogant sod like Wood, who is so sure of himself that he's going to get on social media and make all these ridiculous posts trying to sound like he's this caring individual, and even do interviews with mainstream media which give completely different accounts from what he'd already given to police. I mean, seriously, the guy is just really not the sharpest tool in the shed.
Sometimes you look at the obvious suspects first and that's all you need to do. But in this case, certainly there's some comments from the police, and I suspect this will be one of their main pieces of evidence, is the digital footprint left by the people involved in this matter. So not only a digital footprint by Phoebe and her last movements and doing a timeline of that, but also a digital footprint in relation to those people charged with the offences.
So for those of you who've been with me for a while, we can now say we have found someone who is even less intelligent than Stephen Stearns. That said, one of the first things I see when I look at James Wood is that look of arrogance on his face. He probably never thought about leaving his mobile phone at home, because he probably believed that he was going to get away with this. And honestly, he strikes me as the sort of person that would be the kind of thug that would spend his life bullying people in order to avoid facing consequences for anything.
Terry, we've also heard from Phoebe's family, her mum and her sister. They've been ripped apart by this news. As a detective, how much does the family of the victim push you for answers?
Look, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the family do want to know what's happening with the investigation. They are entitled to know, to a certain extent, what is going on. Basically, I guess the tipping point for information is you can't tell them anything that may interfere or impede the investigation going forward being successful. So up to that point, you can be quite free with information with them, but you've got to be careful you're not going to jeopardise the successful outcome of the investigation later down the track by telling too much.
I don't know if that guy offered a lot of insights that people probably didn't already know, but I thought it was still worth listening to him there may have been things that hadn't occurred to people, and it may just, highlight some of what was involved with regards to the investigation. But I mean, we need to be realistic here too, and the thing is that there are always going to be certain investigative techniques that even retired detectives aren't going to share with the media, because they're things that they probably don't want publicly known. I am going to share this post by Phoebe's mother, Kylie, because it leads into the next topic. So she said, I want to share this. Wow, the Queensland Police Service, the SES and the Bundaberg CPS have been faultless in this process. These guys have literally been on their hands and knees to find our baby and get her home to us. I will honestly never be able to repay them for what they have done for my family and for Phoebe. Okay, slight over-exaggeration because, they may have been working around the clock, but they all would have had to have breaks. They've worked 24-hour days since Phoebe went missing, and they won't stop until she's home. Myself and my family will never be able to repay the sacrifices they make daily for not only our family, but all our families. So, on that note, a friend of Phoebe's family has set up a GoFundMe, and she's saying it's in honour of Phoebe Bishop, and it's been shared on Kylie Johnson's page, as she said here, this is supported by the family, everyone is wanting to assist, and this is how we can give back in honour of Phoebe. So let's have a look at this GoFundMe. I will provide the link for this in the description for this video, so that if there is anyone who does wish to make a donation, you can follow that link and do so. Because it is through GoFundMe, the donations are protected. I normally don't share GoFundMes when it comes to cases unless I can see a direct link to the family. So because Phoebe's mother did actually post about it on her Facebook account, I feel confident in sharing this GoFundMe. So this GoFundMe isn't actually raising money for the family. On May 15, 2025, our world was shattered when Phoebe Bishop, a bright, kind-hearted and deeply loved young woman, was taken from us far too soon. Her life was tragically cut short, and those responsible are now in custody. After speaking with Phoebe's family, we have decided to honour her memory in a way that reflects the compassion and light she brought into the lives of so many. The GoFundMe has been created as a way for our community to donate and support the services like the SES, who volunteer their time without reimbursement and who've played an integral part of finding missing loved ones in our community. We would also like to be able to donate to the Y School in Bundaberg on Phoebe's behalf, where Phoebe thrived from their support and guidance, and I'll come back and have a look at that in a minute. Phoebe had a gentle and generous spirit, always caring for others and standing up for what was right. We want her legacy to live on, and by paying it forward to the amazing volunteers and community. All funds raised will be donated to these carefully chosen community groups that work to support our Wide Bay community. This is more than a fundraiser, this is a tribute to a beautiful life and a call to action to protect the most vulnerable in our communities. Please donate if you are able and share this campaign so we can make a real impact in Phoebe's honour. Let us come together in grief and in hope to ensure Phoebe's light continues to shine. With love, Phoebe's family. So I did see comments around that GoFundMe, people questioning about Phoebe's family and any financial support for them. They have access to financial support from the Queensland government. So there is a payment that is available for funeral expenses resulting from homicides. So we can help pay funeral expenses if a person or an unborn child has died because of violence or has been killed by a dangerous driver. And I'll scroll on to the next part. There is a Queensland homicide victims support group, which I'd imagine will hopefully be making contact with Phoebe's family quite soon, if her family has not already attempted to contact them. And then there's just some more details on funeral expenses. So basically the family can access up to $15,000 to help with all the funeral costs. And that's to cover pretty much everything. So you can see a list down there. All the mortuary related stuff, funeral directors fee, celebrants fee, coffin, floral arrangement, venue hire, funeral notice, everything can be claimed up to $15,000. It's only one payment per case. So, the family, if different family members are paying different expenses, they can claim back, but all up together they can only claim the $15,000. There is also victims' money available. So basically partner, parents, children, siblings and financial dependents can access financial assistance if they had a close personal relationship with the deceased at the time of their death. And then you've got all the usual things. Obviously it needs to have occurred in Queensland and it will pay out because it's a homicide. So they basically have a $15,000 payment for anyone that falls into that category. And while this doesn't apply in Phoebe's case, there is also a $20,000 dependency fee. So for those of you who aren't in Australia and are asking where this money comes from, I believe Queensland, like other states, must basically claim the assets of people who are convicted of things like this, and basically essentially there's like a pool. So once Wood and Bromley are convicted, their assets will most likely be seized and sold off. I would imagine they may be holding like the bus and the vehicles until such time, and then the proceeds from those will go into a victims fund. And basically that just is an ongoing thing so that they have these payments available for people like Phoebe's family. Now, I was going to go through a timeline and accepted facts because I think there's been a lot of confusion while this case has been ongoing, thanks to, I guess, information being put out by Wood that was not quite so accurate. I think I'll do that in a separate video because I'd also like to share some of the things that Wood put out and some of the things he said, just to show how much of a tool the guy actually is. So I will cover timeline and facts of the case, accepted facts, in a separate video, which, barring any other distractions, I will aim to get out for people to view tomorrow. So, on that note, thanks for watching. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. Also, please hit the like button and please leave a comment below. Thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one.